What up? Someone that I follow on YouTube made a video just like this, and I felt inspired to make one about my journey. So shout out that person for the inspiration. But I feel like a lot of the times I talk about just my like drinking habits and getting sober and alcohol, but as like many people, I guess in sobriety or just like if you like go to a therapist or whatever it might be, they'll likely tell you like your substance abuse problem is at the top, and then below it is a bunch of other issues that led you to have an issue with abusing substances. So mine, or my self-diagnosed one and slash doctor diagnosed, is my anxiety. So I wanted to just walk through like my anxiety slash drinking story from the start in 2013 to the end in 2020. So it started in high school when I was probably around 15, 16. I was pretty young for my grade. I was 14 in freshman year, 15, 16, and 17 in my senior year. Um, so yeah, I just entered high school, felt like the young kid in my grade, baby face, shy, super low self esteem, lacked a lot of self confidence. And just like many high school kids, I was trying to, discover my identity and see like who I was gonna become with aspirations and goals of simply being cool and popular and funny and a part of the in crowd. So that's just where my head was likely at when I was 14. I started to realize through sports that I was likely not going to be like the star athlete that I think I'd hoped I would have been in high school. I just wasn't the best at baseball, and I played on the golf team as well, but truthfully, that wasn't like the most competitive, and it's not like we had fans show up to our golf matches, and it wasn't too well known amongst my peers. Um, but yeah, I started to realize like playing baseball all growing up and then up until high school, I started to realize like that wasn't gonna be a part of my identity. So enter sort of like anxiousness and concern about my future. And I think that was carried with me through my sophomore year, when I was then cut from the baseball team. And that's like not the one thing that led me to like a downward spiral. I honestly like wasn't too upset when I was cut from it because it made me realize like I was kind of attached to this sport, and like I played AAU and fall ball and spring ball and went to the batting cages in the winter in New England all the time. So it was just like finally a chance to be like free from that and try and, uncover like what I like to do and what my identity was. But as a high schooler, you have some sort of concern into who you want to become and how you're going to be popular. At least that was my unfortunate concern at the time. So I started just kind of being like the chill, like, whatever, and like brush it off the shoulder kind of guy. Would like try and make jokes at myself, try and just like be funny and chill. And I started partying, like sneaking beers every once in a while. And then my junior year, I actually got drunk for the first time, heading to a football game on Friday night. And that was the first time I ever got drunk. Super vivid memories of that because I enjoyed it so, so, so much. It was like the first thing I truthfully feel like I ever loved in my life, like outside of like my family. Um, like I was shy, anxious, low self esteem, lacked self confidence, lacked self identity. But the moment I got drunk, all those thoughts and those feelings about myself went away. I physically felt amazing. Like the buzz, the warmth that came over me from the buzz of the liquor was incredible. Like I remember grinning from like ear to ear and not being able to wipe that off my face. Showing up to the game, being super social and vocal, And from like my perspective, I was like, this is awesome. I feel like the life of the party. And in high school, like, I don't know, the shy, quiet kid shows up drunk to a football game, starts chatting it up with a bunch of his peers and other students. And like word spreads a little bit. I started to then like get invited to parties and was just a little bit more on like the in crowd and was involved with, some of the people in my grade and the grade above me who partied. And to me, that was like a chance to solidify my identity. So it very quickly went from like me lacking self confidence, self esteem, a sense of identity and direction to then being like, okay, this is it. Cause I love this shit. I love getting drunk. So that was that for the next 8 years. And it wasn't all as good as the first time. The first time was probably the best, and it never got better after that. Granted, I would say I had like a bit of a honeymoon phase with my drinking where like I was like still binge drinking, but it's not like I had access to a ton of like beer and liquor. So like I would just drink what I could. And then once I ran out, like that was all I had. So it wasn't like I could drink in excess in high school quite often, until about like later on in my senior year when I started having close friends who got fake IDs and could get me whatever they wanted. But yeah, that was kind of how it went in high school and how I was, self-identifying myself as the party kind of guy. And that never really went away. So this is me as a young freshman. Did not anticipate picking up like drinking and or smoking weed. And then a few years later, this is me. All three of these photos, I am pretty, if not very drunk in. This is, I think, like a junior year or senior year Halloween party, hammered, falling all over the place. This is prom, where I was very, very drunk, blacked out and browned out, like only remember bits and pieces of it. And then this is senior year pep rally in high school, where I was pretty drunk at that point as well. So I went through old photos and I legitimately do not think I have a single photo from when I started drinking to when I stopped where I was sober. So it's pretty tough looking at these photos, to be completely honest. But I had a bit of a buffer zone after high school when I went to community college for my freshman year because I prioritized partying and how people viewed me, over my academics 100%. That's just the truth. And my anxiety and lack of self confidence was gone when I drank. So that was what I clung to, for the longest time. And that's really all I cared about, was not being so in my own head. Um, and just not overthinking how other people view me. But that led to me not getting into any of the colleges or universities I wanted to go to. Womp womp. And then my friends all went off to 4 year universities. I was very envious and jealous of them for doing that. So I kind of sort of buckled in a little bit when I went to community college. I worked a few part time jobs. I very rarely was able to go out and drink because I was living at home with my parents and commuting to the college at the time. But I did what I needed to do to get into a large 4 year university, Virginia Tech, and then I transferred in my sophomore year. And picture how I was describing myself in high school times 10, no exaggeration. Um, I was equally as shy and nervous. My high school was like 1,400 people. Virginia Tech's 30,000. So I went there knowing no one. It's far from home, trying to establish my identity at this school. And I did what I feel like most people do when they're stressed about their self identity at a big college, and that was join a fraternity. My drinking was so bad off the bat. Um, and yeah, it just snowballed and snowballed and snowballed, and drinking started working less and less and less as this magic pill for my anxiety. Um, and yeah, you just start to not physically feel good after consistent weekends of binge drinking. And if you physically feel good, you don't like how you look, because in my instance, I was so skinny. As you can see in the middle, like, I was very skinny. I remember my parents mentioning how skinny I looked. Doctors had mentioned that I was very underweight. Um, and yeah, that was just like not good for me to hear or see for my mental health. But I wasn't gonna stop drinking because I was so deep buried into this identity I created for myself. So yeah, it's alcohol kind of sort of stopped being fun for me. I just did it out of habit at this point. And when you're in a fraternity with 120 other guys and a majority of them aggressively drink and party and go out often, and there's parties 3, 4, 5 times a night, maybe like 3 times a night, but there's opportunities to drink close to 5 times a week. Um, you just do it. At least I did. I had points in times in college where I kind of knew I needed to take a break or even a weekend off, and I never could get myself to do it. I like couldn't even take like a day off, um, to be honest. So was just drinking, drunk, deprioritizing my academics yet again, and just putting myself in these situations that made me anxious and uncomfortable, and leveraging my drinking and other drug use at this point in time to make myself comfortable and just try and be the person who I thought I wanted to be, but deep down knew I shouldn't. And that was kind of the story behind it. I started getting some pretty serious panic attacks around my junior to senior year as well, commonly coming after a bender or just a really rough blackout or night out. I had one my junior year where I literally couldn't stop pacing. It was my first one. And I was home at my parents' house after Thanksgiving break and going out with my hometown friends. And I remember pacing around my house. I was sitting on the couch in the back room of my parents' house. I was home by myself. I was either scrolling my phone or on a laptop trying to do something. And all of a sudden, just like so much overwhelming, like, sensations came over me where I remember I had to put my laptop down or my phone down, and like I didn't know what to do. I just started pacing my house, like walking in laps quickly. And I literally thought that if I was going to stop, something really bad was going to happen to me. Like I could potentially like drop dead or die. Um, so that's how I truly felt after a night out. I remember like trying to call my parents, couldn't even really speak to them on the phone. Um, and yeah, I just got taken to um, urgent care. And then I like noticed I started feeling better as I was like getting an IV or something at urgent care, getting oxygen. They mentioned panic attacks or anxiety, and I brushed it off. I had another one when I was at college because um, similar situation. I woke up and my stomach was in such intense pain, and I would have so many stomach issues and physically feel terrible. Um, and that would also lead to anxiety over how I felt physically. So it was just this huge concoction of like throwing shit basically at my anxiety, mainly just my drinking, but that also had so many negative side effects, like physically being in immense pain and being weak and frail and having a lack of appetite and being dehydrated consistently, and all these physical things that do also lead to anxiousness were just piling up and up and up. Um, and just kind of taking over, and that was starting to become my identity. I was starting to become like the super fucking anxious person, at least so I thought. I had another one driving home by myself from Virginia Tech back to Massachusetts. It's like a 16-hour drive, and I went out super aggressively the night before, even though I was like, I'm not gonna fucking do it because I can't be hungover for this ride, but I did it anyways. I woke up and just like the thought of facing like 16 hours on the road, sleep deprived and hungover, started to pile up on the ride home. And I think just like almost sobering up on the ride home too, like so many thoughts started piling up. And, my anxiety and just anxiety in general commonly led to panic attacks, probably 5 to 10 of them, and upwards of 15 to 20 moments where I was probably teetering the line of a serious panic attack. But I started to get, unfortunately, more comfortable with that sort of sensation, and I was able to recognize that they were panic attacks, and I started to try to use some decent coping mechanisms to breathe through it and get through it. But whole bunch of those. Graduated barely, to be honest. um, I had to stay after college for a few weeks to do community service hours after an arrest that I had at the first semester of my senior year. I kept that from my parents and family, and that also brought so much anxiety to me. I had to get a lawyer and go to court, and I got arrested, and that just wasn't who I anticipated myself being. And this whole leaning into this identity to feel a part of something and have external validation snowballed all the way up until this. So that's just who I became. And I was so deep into it that that's kind of just who I was, and people recognize me as. I graduated, and my first few paychecks literally went to paying off my sisters who helped me with my lawyer fees because I was dead broke in college. I hated my job. I was starting to realize through my job that I was introverted and anxious, in a sales role where I was cold calling was not the right thing for me, at least at that time. So I was literally just working for the weekend, hate my job, not working out, blacking out on the weekend. Even if I was home at my parents' house, out back on a Friday night, I would have a 12 to 18 pack of beer, wake up, feel like shit, and just look for the next opportunity to drink, and just try to not be present in my life at that stage. So yeah, this middle picture, little story time here, but it was the second ish weekend. Me and my friends all were, out after, all having full time jobs, and spending a weekend going out to a friend's house and being out of our parents' house. And I just totally turned it on into a bender mode like I would in college. And it was the first time that or maybe second time that I was able to let loose, because I wasn't home at my parents' house. Post college, we went away to a friend's house, and we had a weekend on Cape Cod, and I got so fucking drunk one of the nights that it was a pool bar, and I dove headfirst into the shallow end of the pool. And if I wasn't so blacked out and my muscles weren't probably so relaxed, could have been so bad. So situations like that were not uncommon. I would commonly wake up with bruises and scrapes, and have situations in college where it wasn't just my stomach hurting. I would have bruises and other things hurting that would also stress me out from all my blackouts. And then photo on the right, and clearly drinking a Corona and a vodka lemonade at the same time. And yeah, I just put these pictures in because that was me, totally blacked out, both those places. And then I would go to work and sit in an office that Monday morning, 48 hours after that, and absolutely hate it. And this is when I started to be something's kind of got to change, because my free time is starting to diminish with all these responsibilities of real world life. And the way I'm utilizing my free time is by not remembering any of it. So yeah, COVID kind of happened, and that's when I started to realize that it wasn't just my anxiety of being in large social situations like a bar or a club or a party or whatever it might be, around people that I don't know and I'm not that comfortable with, because I would still black out even when COVID restrictions were happening. Bars were closed, and the only thing I could do was sit at home and drink with a few of my friends, um, who I knew very well. And I would still manage to black out, and I would have, no joke, 15 to 20 drinks, I would smoke a joint, I would wake up and feel awful. And then this photo on the right is when I think I started to feel really depressed for kind of the first time, because I think deep down at this point, it was pushing 8 years in. I was probably a month away from getting sober at this on this photo on the right. Um, and this is when like anxiety met my depression, kind of, because I was just so sick and tired of it at this point in time, where I, was out with friends 4th of July weekend. I got sober August 8th, and this was 4th of July weekend. So yeah, this was a month before, um, I believe, a month before that I made the decision and I stopped drinking and got sober. But I think I just realized like I was not at all who I wanted to be. And after years and years of deep down knowing that, and that leading to so much anxiety, and then piling on my alcohol issue, which led to physical pain that made me anxious and feel good, unhealthy, and just snowballed. That photo, for whatever reason, when I was going through, I was like, I think I like FaceTimed a friend that night, blacked out, and like I just wasn't in a good place, and I knew something needed to change. I like it's such a fucking ridiculous photo, but I think I like stepped out of a bar, grabbed a cigarette, and was just like, I need to stop doing this. Um, yeah, I just realized I was so detached from like my true self and my feelings and my emotions at this point in time. So I was like, something needs to change. And then in August, I had these feelings going into a work event, and this was the last time that I drank. So it was probably the first weekend in August. My company that I was at went to Nashville for this event, and we threw a party. And I went into this weekend or week, whatever it is, and I remember telling my sister, I was like, I'm serious about stopping drinking this time around. Some people knew like they probably didn't know the extent in which like I felt about my drinking, but they knew like I drank to excess often and blacked out very, very frequently. Um, but I remember saying before this week or weekend with my colleagues that I like don't want to drink. Like I would be very, very happy if I don't drink. But at the end of the day, looking back, this was like the icing on the cake, the nail in the coffin. At a work event, a lot of people there, like slightly my professional reputation on the line, totally blacked out, don't remember anything. Apparently, I ran out into the street in Broadway in Nashville and was close to getting hit by a car. Um, yeah, I think I woke up in the hallway of the hotel room. Don't remember getting home, missed calls, people concerned, yada, yada, yada. Um, and just also physically feeling fucking terrible the next day and like having to go do work shit. So yeah, that was the icing on the cake. So when I realized like my drinking is so out of control and it also does nothing anymore to assist with my anxiety. So I got sober, and the first like year ish, first 6 months, it's like so much of that emotion that kind of stacks up and up and up and trickles in. So it gets super, super overwhelming, because that's when you start to really, really realize like I was substituting alcohol to suppress my feelings of anxiety and now depression, which I believe the consistency of my drinking and the habit in which I drank led me to feeling so detached from my emotions and my true self that I also got fairly depressed. Um, from this. And I don't think deep down, like the person I am and the soul that I have is intended to be like depressed. I think in certain situations for certain people, like depression can just happen. But I do think there are people that have depression from deep rooted childhood traumas and whatever. And like that wasn't me. I think I truly, through not living up to the person who I truly, truly wanted to be and straying further and further away from my true identity by creating this party identity for myself, I made myself depressed. And I found myself so far away from my real emotions that I was so lost and directionless in my life. So, first year is like going to therapy, being pretty alone with my thoughts, recognizing I have a problem, writing, doing everything I can do to just try and, stack days and be happy. Um, and yeah, there was pockets of happiness, a lot of pockets of sadness, anxiety, overwhelming. Got put on some medication for it. Um, and yeah, just worked through my shit. And it got really real and made me realize like I was truly drinking for this and that, my anxiety and my depression. And then you can uncover more and more of that yourself. Like if you are someone that thinks you have a substance abuse problem, you can be like, so I have anxiety, I might have depression, or whatever it might be. You might have certain instances for you, but it's going to be so unclear to you, like why you drink the way you do, until you remove it from your life and start to seek help or have good conversation and be truthful with yourself. So it was an anxiety problem, and it was a drinking problem that were paired together to at one point in time feel like it was the perfect thing for me, that then eventually snowballed into a very dark period in my life to then something that, changed me probably for the rest of my life in getting sober and now being 3+ years sober. So that's where I'm at. Yeah, would love to maybe share some more things right now. All right, last snippet. But right now, I'm just in a stage where I am 3 years sober. I recognize that, I have value to give. And yeah, I just feel like there's more purpose to my life than a few of the jobs that I've been working in the past. So I'm putting myself out there. I'm starting to make these videos to see if something might stick, or if, you know, it might feel a little bit more purposeful and fulfilling. So if you're out there, if you happen to watch this video, thank you for sticking around this long. I'm just a guy looking to better myself and figure out what my true purpose is, like many people out there. So I sympathize if you feel like you're one of them. And yeah, I hope that you can find moments of peace and happiness in your life. And I hope that if you do have a substance abuse problem, or you're going through anxiety or depression, that you feel comfortable enough with one person in your life that you can go to about them, you can go to with it. So yeah, thanks for listening. Hope to potentially create more videos similar to this. And yeah, thanks for listening. Have a good night.